fun part of the meeting, but we do appreciate the speeches that were prepared and time we spent on beforehand. Tonight's table of topics is, I just did it during the speeches. And it's kind of a mixture between a combination of Aaron and Mark's speeches and the Super Bowl. And what it is, when I call upon you or volunteer, you're going to come up and give a 1 to 2 minute speech, and then we vote on our best table topics. And if you win, you get a nice shiny ribbon. So without further ado, I am going to start with some questions that I got inspired from Mark and Aaron's speech. And my first question is, what has been your best or worst job you have ever had? Oh, Stephen.
I have to say my best job is probably my current job as a resident advisor here at the resident halls. As an RA, we do a little bit of everything. As Mark mentioned in his speech about resume and cover letters, I had an interesting time updating my resume recently. In the past, I focused on community service, academics, and kind of put the RA lifestyle in the background. But I realized being an RA has so many components to it, I have to expand more and make my resume around that. From putting on programs, to conducting meetings, to enforcing rules, to monitoring the building, being an RA is a little bit of everything. I was talking earlier to one of my coworkers about how I could compare it to being an astronaut even. Taking commands from the commander-in-chief above, having technology by your fingertips, being dressed in uniform, paying close attention to detail. There's a couple of similarities. They were buying it. So obviously, being an RA involves a little bit of acting too. My worst job is probably when I was younger. I was in charge of looking over children in the local park. Like being an RA, I have to look over others, enforce rules, and pay attention to detail. But unlike being an RA, the children were crazy. They would run around. They would be banging on tables. They would be kicking things over. They'd be arguing and yelling. Well, maybe there's a few similarities. But overall, I like being an RA. I'm sad and excited at the same time that I'll be graduating in May and no longer an RA. But definitely look forward to challenging the world, getting into the real world as they call it, and seeing what exactly being an RA I'll use in my next profession. Mr. Toastmaster.
Awesome. I feel like an RA has really helped improve you as well. My best job was working at American Eagle way back in the day. I worked with clothes, I listened to music, I did nothing. It was great. My worst job is the one I have now, Home Depot. Because it has absolutely nothing to do with my career and my major. My next question stems from Aaron's speech. What is the greatest volunteer activity you have ever done? Jordan?
The greatest volunteer activity I've done, I would say, was roughly 3 years ago, 2010. I spent a week in Mazatlan, Mexico, built with part of the senior class I got through, and we built a playground, and we got to play with the kids, do the games with them, make the best playground you've ever seen from one of the worst, run-down, nasty joints. And these kids in Mazatlan, little guys, completely insane. And I remember one of my favorite things from that is this little guy named Pablo. And he would ride around on his big wheel with a bowl of grapes in just one hand, just driving around. And it was probably the most changing, growing experience of my life. It humbled me and made me much less materialistic in a lot of ways, made me understand value and things in life and what is important. And that's about it.
Would anyone else like to tackle those two questions that have been presented? The best job and worst job and the greatest volunteer experience. Would anyone else like to take on those questions? Now I'm going to switch over to the Super Bowl. I'm sure everyone's still in mourning that the Niners lost. But actually, did you guys watch this past Super Bowl, or do you watch the Super Bowl in general? And do you like watching it? Want to answer that? Mark.
I'll confess that I don't really watch sports, ever. I find I don't have time. When it comes to the Super Bowl, that's a whole different story. I haven't felt so excited in quite some time. I went to my girlfriend's dad's place, and I was jumping up and down. I felt like a little kid again. It was Super Bowl Sunday. It was Super Sunday. I wouldn't have missed that for the world. I definitely was rooting for the 49ers. And to make things complicated, Kayla's dad was voting for the other team. Team that must not be named. And when the other team won, there was some conflict in the house. But you guys got it. I mean, that was a fantastic game. Second half, at least. And I'm so glad I watched it. I wouldn't miss it for the world. If you don't watch football, if you've never really gone into it, I recommend at the very least, you give Super Bowl Sunday a chance.
Well, I was able to catch bits and pieces of the Super Bowl from the break room, but it was so dead at work, I ended up doing half my homework and got paid for it. My next question is related to the awesome commercials that are usually featured during the Super Bowl Sunday. Which one is your favorite commercial?
What least favorite?
That too, or it could be your least favorite commercial.
Okay, so Pat,
Yes.
good morning. Good afternoon, everybody. My company that I work for is called Van Houston, and we have a parent company called PVH, and part of that company is Calvin Klein. So the day before the Super Bowl, we get a memo, and they let us know that there will be a new Calvin Klein commercial. It's going to be an underwear commercial, and they also name the model that's going to be there. So I get really excited. I'm like, okay, this is like one in a lifetime opportunity. 30-second commercial. I wonder how much money they paid for this thing, right? So Super Bowl Sunday comes, and I watch this commercial. I am completely disappointed by this man that they show, because all you can see is like half his body, and he's just flexing. That's all the commercial is, and it doesn't make sense whatsoever to me. And that was just devastating, because of all the money that they spent on it, it really just showed how materialistic and like it's about the male body. Disappointing. That's all I can say.
Awesome. I did catch a few commercials, and I really liked the Budweiser Clydesdale commercial. It was really cool. My next question is the favorite concert or performer at the Super Bowls. It doesn't have to be this current one, or it could be a past one. You're thinking
Can you take it?
cards, right? Do you want to go again?
Sure.
Sure.
I actually thought this was probably the best Super Bowl halftime show in recent years. I mean, when we look at Christina Aguilera completely ruining the national anthem, anybody can remember that, or Aerosmith, he hasn't aged a day, has he? Christina did good. I mean, even though she took the power out drying her hair after, she moved, she sang, she was on pitch. It was a great light show. The dancers were great. Everything was pretty smooth. And that's why I think Beyonce had the best Super Bowl show in recent years.
Nice.
Now comes the burning question: who is your favorite team? Jasmine or Ulysses, would you like to take the question?
I do.
How about another one?
Also, another topic in another question is usually shows or the networks that it's on do big premieres right after the game. So, what is your favorite TV show? Kayla?
I'll answer the other one about the one.
Okay.
So I grew up in a family of 3 girls, and my dad was the only male in our entire household. So at any given night, when you came to my house, we were watching Disney Channel or Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network, and my dad never got to watch TV except on Sundays. On Sundays, if one of us went to grab the remote, no, you don't do that. Football is on Sundays, and my dad is going to watch it. And he loves the Chicago Bears. And growing up in a Chicago Bears house caused me really to like it. And getting to watch the games with my dad and spending that time with him, and all the gear in my house was Chicago Bears. So I have a bunch of Chicago Bears gear. Might as well like them. But just the memories that I have with my family from watching the Bears has really made them my favorite team.
That is all the questions I have for this table topics round. I'd like to thank everyone who came up for coming up, and also to remind you that we are voting for our best table topics for the evening. So this evening we have Mark, Jordan, Stephen, Kayla,
Deanna.
Diana.
Both words.
And those are the ones who you can vote for.
There's a place on your ballot to vote.
Yes, you place it on your You place it on your ballots to vote.
And then pass to Justin.
And they pass it to Justin so he can do the vote counting.
Can you go over the names again, please?
Yes. Mark, Jordan, Stephen, Kayla, Diane. Okay, I would now like to introduce our German evaluator for the evening, Kayla.
So this is definitely the part of the meeting that we're all really here for. As fun as it is to listen to speeches and do table topics, we want to be the best speakers we possibly can be. And this time we have evaluators that listen to the speeches given today and